Over the Hyundai you want.
Hey, I'm Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
G'day, I'm Marcus Ambrose.
Hey, this is Kenny Rogers, and you're listening to
The Fuel Pod.
This podcast covers all things motorsports. It's unfiltered, it's unabashed, and
Ooh, we're going crazy.
Oh, forgot to take the background off again, Jay.
Oh, you did.
That's 2 weeks in a row, man.
We're not even actually here. Now we are back.
Yes, we are.
We're here with episode 43. You spin me right round, and there is a reason for the name of that. And I think you'll see it as we talk about the Saudi Grand Prix, Saudi Arabian Grand Prix tonight, and the WRC Mexico, and the 1,000 miles in Sebring. There was a lot of topsy-turvy, spinny, a lot of stuff going on. So we got a lot to talk about, so let's get on it.
All right.
Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, man.
We're going to start for qualifying right off the bat. It was a good race, by the way. I mean, just real quickly, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. And, I took the time to really watch the qualifying. And, most of the time I at least get one session. And a lot of times I'm at work, so because it's usually on Friday, and I'm just not available for it. So I did watch it. Q1 was probably the most interesting session, which is weird. I thought it was, and I don't know what your thoughts are, but I thought it was weird that AlphaTauri was completely out after Q1.
Well, I mean, we kind of expected them to be at the bottom.
Yeah,
but I mean, I don't know. I know I haven't been real impressed with De Vries. I can tell you that.
No, and I'm going to actually talk about that a little bit. But
Yuki had another good race, but I don't know, man. I didn't strike me as crazy.
Yeah.
But I would have, you would think one of them can get in the top. What is it, 14, 15?
Yeah, you'd think.
You'd think one of them.
It's 15 cars.
Yeah.
Put somebody there.
Somebody. Right? Yuki should be able to get there.
Logan Sargent would have been top 2 without the BS track, dude. That was the worst. They literally, it was like the memo went out right before qualifying. Hey, if you touch the pink paint, you're out. Your lap is invalidated.
Now, and we didn't get a chance to do a little pre-race show, and this is not a sniper question, Jay.
Yeah.
Did you happen to see if there was any explanation given other than we don't want you to touch the pink paint?
Dude, the memo that the drivers were that the teams were given prior to qualifying said any driver that enters the pink paint on the exit of turn 27 will have their lap time invalidated.
I just wonder what the reasoning is.
Brother, listen, I know this is going to be, and I'm just shooting from the hip here, but I really think they didn't want that paint messed up. I, honest to God, think that they didn't want that paint messed up before the race so that they wouldn't have to get people out there to redo it, because that's on the front stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I get all that, but it just seems really weird. That's just a weird. I mean, because you're not gaining anything there.
Yeah,
you're not gaining any. You're not shaving off track. But I mean, there wasn't any. I didn't understand it at all.
Well, neither did the broadcast team. Because they reported it as turn 27, and Jolyon Palmer was like, "You cannot exceed track limits on turn 27. What are they talking about?" And then finally, I think it was Jakes that said, hey, so apparently there was a memo that went to the team and told them blah, 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 what we just talked about. So anyway, it was crap, and I think it ruined his whole weekend. I really do.
I don't disagree, but boy, I tell you what, and I know we're going to talk about it later, that kid acts like he belongs now.
Dude, he ran that lap that got invalidated, he ran a 128.7, and I think that was 0.5 below Checo's record pole lap last year.
That's crazy.
And he's a rookie in a Williams. And that's the operative word. He's in a Williams. So anyway, Lando Norris out in Q1. If we hadn't seen Bahrain and we hadn't seen the car launch, this would have blown my mind. It didn't blow my mind except for the fact that Piastri cleared Q1 and 2. So this kind of goes back to what I was talking about when we were about predictions. And my theory on McLaren was that they were going to have a nuclear meltdown. And I'm telling you right now, if Piastri keeps outperforming Lando Norris, it's going to be full tilt, guiding light days of our lives on that team.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
So I don't know what your thoughts are, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And because I thought that was a little crazy that Piastri. I mean, he only raced 15 laps or whatever it was at Bahrain, so it wasn't like we got a good feel for him. Well, well, I mean, I'm being serious here.
He basically did a Formula 2 feature race at
yeah, I mean, it's not like he did anything. So his first attempt out there, I mean, like you said, he out-qualified Norris. Yeah, I bet McLaren is such a crazy. Yeah.
Anyway,
one on there, but Piastri might be their future.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving into Q2, Verstappen reported an engine failure. It ended up being drive shaft.
Yeah, thank goodness.
And again, Piastri made Q3, and that had to chap Lando's rear end, man.
Oh, without a doubt, man.
It did.
Because now he's Danny Ricciardo.
Yeah, and his surrogate father, Zach Brown's probably like, "What the H, bro?
What's going on here, man?"
Yeah, Lando, what are you doing? I've got to draw up adoption papers now for Piastri. So Q3 was boring. That's all I put. It was as expected.
Yeah.
Of course, Leclerc qualified P2, but he had the grid penalty, so that threw him back and gave Alonso P2, which good thing it did.
And I mean, listen, that's the best thing Ferrari did all weekend was qualify P2.
Yeah. I disagree with you, but yeah, I mean, as far as qualifying, yeah, that's probably the best thing they did. Sainz was slow. I felt like he was on his own, pardon the pun, lonely island all weekend. Even though he finished ahead of Leclerc in the race, but we'll get there when we're talking about Ferrari because I want to argue with you a little bit. So let's move on to the race and the rule of three. And I really think the rule of three is going to be our theme this year.
Okay.
Talking about you got to have drivers.
Yep.
You got to have a car.
Yep.
And you got to have a team. You got to have all three things. It's one of the few jobs I think you can have in this world where you have to have all three of them to be successful. You can't have two of three. You definitely can't have one of three.
No, you can't have one of three. That's for sure.
Yeah. Even two of three, you're going to need a lot of luck.
As long as the two of the three is the car and the driver, you can every once in a while you can overcome because your team's not always going to be terrible. The sun shines on a dog's rear every once in a while, and you're going to have every once in a while it's going to work out okay for you.
Yeah.
But you definitely can't have one out of three. That's for sure.
So we'll just go through the grid real quick, and we'll start with Red Bull. And for all you old farts out there that remember watching Sports Center with Kenny Mayne back in the day and how dry his wit was, I'll say that I'll do my best Kenny Mayne when I say Red Bull has 87 points. That's 87 points for the season, not for one race. That would be a record.
What's funny is you put that on there, and I was like, what is 87? And then I realized I was like, well, it can't just be one race. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but do you remember the Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa
home run battle? Well,
yeah.
Of course I do.
So Kenny Mayne was doing ESPN that night, and he was like, Sammy Sosa hit home runs 55 and 56. That's 56 for a season, not for a game. That would be a record. And the New York Football Jets acquired Vinny Testaverde for the purpose of playing tackle football. So anyway,
I did like Kenny Mayne's deadpan delivery. That's for sure.
Oh, dude, it was him and Dan Patrick together were priceless.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I did not think that we were gonna get a Kenny Mayne and Dan Patrick today.
I love those guys, man. That was the golden.
I was always an Olbermann fan. I like Keith Olbermann and Dan Patrick.
Yeah. See, I didn't like Bob Lay either. I was like, dude, that's why they gave him the outside the line segment. Yeah.
Yeah, he was boring.
So back to Formula One. All right. So Red Bull.
Okay.
So start of the race, Alonso gets the jump. I felt like Checo had a bad start. Alonso gets the jump, hits the inside corner, takes first place, but it wasn't too long before Checo passed him again, and then that was it. That was the end of the race.
That was definitely the end of the race, and
yeah,
man, it seems like maybe I'm wrong. You get that confirmation bias thing where you only remember the certain things, but It seems like Sergio Perez is not good on restarts, or is not good on starts. Restarts are a different animal because it's usually single file, but the start of the race, it seems like he always gets beat. If he's in second place, somebody gets to the inside. I mean, if he's in third place, he never. I mean, like it just seems like he always gets beat on
he
on
does.
starting. Yeah,
I
it's,
identify a lot with him, but you've got some some Checo video for us.
we do. So we'll have we got some video, some audio for the top three, the podium finishers, and then one extra. And just real quickly, if you're listening to us on ESPN Paris 105.3 or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you choose to listen, thank you for listening to us. And this is a good reason to watch us on YouTube because you get to see the video. You get to see our smiling faces and our tired faces and Sergio Perez here in just a minute with sweat dripping down his face. You get to see all the cool videos we have. Anyway, without further ado, this is Perez right after the race. So that's him right after. Just,
wow, it's amazing. It reminds me of Sammy Sosa again because it was like, Sammy, what do you think about the race this year? And he's like, baseball has been very, very good to me. And, you look at Checo talking about, I really love driving for Red Bull Racing. I absolutely believe that.
Oh, I do too.
I absolutely believe that because that kid, and I say kid, even though he's probably, close to 30 at least, but he has been through it. I mean, and there's a few drivers on the grid that have, but Checo has. He came up through Force India and Racing Point, and but here's the other side part of it. I don't feel sorry for him because he's one of the biggest money bringers on the planet.
Yeah, I mean, he gets an entire country.
Yeah,
he brings an entire country with you.
Yes,
absolutely, is pretty awesome.
Yes,
yeah, that's
he does. Awesome. So Max. So we know Max had the drive shaft. I know I was all excited because I thought it was engine failure, and then Chad decided to pee in my cornflakes, and he's like, "It was just a drive shaft because I love Red Bull. Red Bull is the best."
I'd like the team.
Yeah, so it was a drive shaft. They fixed it, obviously, but in order to fix the drive shaft, you have to remove the power unit, which they did legally, so it was fine. But they got a grid penalty, and he started out 15th on the grid. And I don't care if they said he started out 45th. I don't care if they said he has to start out with his car in the trailer. Nobody
could have started on pit road.
Yeah, nobody's touching that. He could start at the hotel. Nobody's touching that car, and we'll talk about that later. But he just charged through the field. I mean, him and Leclerc both were charging through the field at one point, but Leclerc decided, "Hey, I'm going to take a vacation for a little while."
Yeah, Leclerc hit a wall. It's like he got to a certain point, and then he was just done. Like he couldn't. There was no more forward movement.
Yeah, and we'll obviously get to Ferrari anyway, but Max just charged through the field. I mean, second, at the very least, second. P2 was a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
The only question was he going to catch Checo? And that's another whole story by itself too. But
and he talks about it here for a second. Yeah, we got some Max audio, and he talks about trying to catch. So it sounds like he knew, okay, here's where I'm at. I'm not going to catch him.
Yeah.
And then your next thing comes up, so I'll let you lead into that. I think you and I are different here. We're not a whole lot different.
I don't think we are. I think once you hear me explain it, you're going to be like, yeah, that's the same thing. I think we're at least close on a solution.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So Max realized the 5-second deficit to Checo was a non-starter. He also knew he didn't want to blow the drive shaft and not finish the race. Here's the other piece you got to realize. We both watched this race on F1 TV.
100%.
And I'm betting money that you watched it from the basic presentation mode.
I did. I never switch off of it.
Okay, so if you go back and you watch that last 10 laps from Checo's perspective, and you watch the last 10 laps from Max's perspective, I think you'll get a different take on it.
Okay.
Because F1 TV, those guys, Will Buxton, Palmer, all them guys, they're selling you the race they want you to see. So Max calls and goes, "Hey, who's got fastest lap?"
Now they did play this. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and the engineer calls back and says, "Hey, we're not concerned about that right now." And he's like, "Well, I am." And I think the deal was, it came off as Max is a dick, but I think he was saying, "I can't." Yeah, you'll have to do the beep later. I'm okay with that. I think we can actually say that. I think that word's. I don't think it's in the 7 words.
I think ESPN is probably going to take us off of that one.
Yeah. So, although I've heard that on ESPN multiple times. Anyway, most of those people were named Dick. But Anyway,
Now it's twice.
no,
Thanks.
twice. So I think Max's thing was like, hey, I can't win the race, but I could get fastest lap. Right? So
Yeah.
he needed a win. That being said, this is what I think Max was thinking. But what I actually think Max was thinking was, I'm not, just like he said, I'm not in this for second place. And I'm not going to give Checo an ounce of room. He needs to know that I'm the alpha on this team. As if two
I
world
agree.
champions don't say that enough. And as if one race out of 23 is going to be a huge deal. But Max does not care. And I think this is where Lewis had him pegged. He was like, Max is a very aggressive driver. This is what he wants, and he goes for it no matter what. So I think Lewis has him pegged. And I think Checo's got him pegged too. The problem we've got is that Helmut Marko and Jos Verstappen, who I think they need to give a ban on the paddock. Dad doesn't need to be on the paddock until the end of the race.
Yeah.
He was absolutely just ridiculously teed off that Checo even won the race. But I think if you asked Max, he would have been like, no, there was no way I was going to pass Checo.
Yeah, I don't think that he's going to pass Checo. And, there is some – I saw the same video you did, and they showed a different take on it, and it shows Jos Verstappen congratulating Checo, shaking hands with him, slapping high five with him. So I think maybe he has resting B face more than anything, and I think he probably gets a bad – because he looked mad. He looked mad.
Dude, and I know you did this as a kid probably too, but is there anything worse? Like playing Little League. I was a pitcher in Little League.
Okay.
And I just remember one team where dad was the coach and his son was the star pitcher, even though he was terrible and he was never good for more than half an inning. He would just let him stand out there and pitch us to a loss. And, it goes back to dads living vicariously through their children. It's okay to give your child tutelage, and it's okay to coach him in the right direction if he wants to go that way.
Yeah.
But cut it off at that. And, and Joss, his career was there. It was, 9-10 years. He wasn't great. His son is. Just let it go, bro.
Yeah, just let whatever happens happen.
Right.
There's no point to be mad about anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do feel bad for Christian. I wonder how much of an earful he gets from that guy weekly.
From Josh, I bet it's ridiculous, and I bet, Helmut's like the evil overlord of that team, and I just wonder what that dynamic looks like. I'm sure Josh goes straight to Helmut because he probably doesn't want to deal with the slick tongue of Christian Horner. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
I got you.
Who knows? We're not there, man. It's really hard to make a judgment on something when we're not there.
That's true.
The end of the race with Red Bull, though, and I put this on here, but you're not going to convince me. You're not, unless you try really, really hard, that Toto or Christian Horner didn't request the review of Alonso's penalty and how he served it. And I don't want to put a lot of time into this, but I don't think it was Toto, even though Toto had the most to gain because it would have put Russell on the podium.
Yeah,
I mean, from a spin doctor standpoint, I don't think he would have done it because Aston Martin used a Mercedes power unit.
Yeah, I mean, what does Christian Horner have to gain from this? He knows they're the fastest two cars on the field on the grid.
He
every
does
single
right now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but I just don't.
Okay, so
I guess
probably
the edge you can get. I don't feel like Christian's the one that's going to do that. I feel like Toto would have. I mean, usually the simplest answer is the right one,
So let me ask you a question. And if you agree with this, I'll continue. And if you don't, we'll move on.
Okay.
If Red Bull's season bottoms out, it will be Red Bull's fault.
Of course, yes. It's
Okay,
not,
so
yeah.
That being said, if you're Christian Horner, and Christian Horner has proved time and time again, he thinks 3 or 4 steps ahead. That's one thing I do like about him. And one thing that him and Toto share, I think. And that's probably why they come to blows sometimes. But if you're looking down the grid and you might have I think Red Bull's car is fragile. I really do. I think it's great as long as it's working. But I think once they have a reliability thing, it's going to sting them for a few races. I also think this Checo thing is going to gain speed. I don't think in the end it's going to change anything. They're going to win the championship. But that being said, their biggest competition right now is Aston Martin, and I don't think that's going to change.
I think you're right. I don't think that's going to change. And maybe he did. What do I know, man? But I just.
And I don't want to belabor the point. I just want
to
put it out there that I'm sure it was one of those two that did it. I mean, we know it wasn't Zach Brown because he was nowhere near him.
No, he's got nothing here. Nothing here.
But dude, let's talk about Mercedes. I want to hear what you think.
Hold on, you want to talk about Mercedes or Aston Martin?
I want to talk about. Okay, my thing spun out there real quick. So let's talk about Aston Martin. Sorry,
it's okay. I just didn't know if you wanted to skip Aston Martin and come back later to it. I didn't know what you wanted to do.
I didn't.
Man, I'm going to tell you though, when Aston Martin, when Alonso got the jump right off the bat,
yeah,
and he got, I thought usually in Formula One, it seems like when somebody gets out in front in clean air, they can break away. Yeah. And I really thought, as good as their car was, he may have a shot at getting away from them.
Right.
But clearly he didn't. Checo reeled him in pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know. What were you thinking?
So here's what I was thinking. It depended on the start. I knew once Alonso got the start that he would jump ahead, but I was like, it'll be 2 seconds, maybe 2 seconds. And then once lap 3 kicked in and DRS set in, I knew Checo had him.
Yeah.
And I think I texted you earlier this week and I said, Alonso could run third all year and they'll be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, that would do third place for Aston Martin from like 8th.
Which, by the way,
ridiculous.
I mean, this is a track we thought they were going to struggle at. You came out, you sit there, and they didn't. Even though with Stroll, they didn't struggle.
They were a lot behind. I mean, I didn't mean struggle. I meant they would not be able to get near Red Bull.
Yeah, but I mean, they were ahead of Mercedes Ferrari.
Yes. And that brings up a whole new set of struggles that we got to talk about here in a few minutes. But I thought Alonso, this is what I loved about him, and I think this has to do with him being 41 and not being 25.
Okay.
I think he knew I have a third place car. You tell a 25-year-old you got a third place car. What are they going to do, Chad?
They're going to wreck trying to get second.
They're going to wreck trying to get second. You tell a 41-year-old you got a third place car, you're sitting in that cockpit going, I just got to maintain third. I'll do what I can, but in the end of the day, they've got 2 faster cars than me. Let's just not screw up and lose third.
Yeah, let's make sure we bring third home.
Right.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
That's right. And he did that, man. He did exactly what he should have done.
So
and he got his 100th podium for it.
I do. I got some video here. Now, this video was taken right after this interview was right after the podium, right after the race.
Okay.
So in this moment, he thinks that he might have lost the third place. Okay.
Gotcha.
So
and
just
we'll
a little context here. But one of the things I want you to look at in this video, guys out there watching, is the pure joy on this dude's face.
Oh, a 10-year-old kid.
He looks happier than anybody else in the grid. Anyway, so here is. Yeah, you can just see the pure joy on that dude's face right now. He knows they've got a good car. He's feeling pretty good.
Yeah, he was like, I said it this week, he was like a dog in a hubcap factory, man.
Yeah,
he's just happy. He's like a 10-year-old kid with a new toy. He's like, man, and the sad part for me is that he is 41. And what if he'd have been given this car at 25 or 27?
Well, isn't he a 2-time world champion?
He is a 2-time world champion. But, dude, here's the thing, and this is what you don't talk about ever. Sebastian Vettel.
Okay, 4-time world champion.
Fernando Alonso won his 2nd world title, and then came Sebastian Vettel at Red Bull Racing.
Okay.
And those 4 years that Sebastian Vettel came in first and got the world title in the Constructors, guess who came in second? Every single one of those 4 years.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
You did not know that. Right. It was Fernando Alonso. He has struggled, and he has scratched, clawed, and kicked his way, even at 41 years old, into a car that works. And I think he's going to make the best of it.
Yeah.
I think he's going to count. he's not going to count wins this year, man. He's not. And this is probably the last team he's going to drive for.
Probably.
But he can count podiums. And at the end of the day, man, he can add those to the Fernando Alonso. If you have not seen the Amazon Prime documentary on Fernando Alonso, you should. He's got a museum for his racing career, and it's ridiculous looking. It's really cool.
That's cool.
He can add those podiums. And, I can't add those podiums, Chad. You can't add those.
Nope.
What an incredible career. So, I'm just happy that he's running up front. And I really hope, we have to talk about he's not the only piece of that team. Lance Stroll is a part of that team. And Lance Stroll had did you watch like the first 2 or 3 laps where he was just scrapping?
He was moving pretty good. Yeah. I mean, he had control of the car. Arm doesn't seem to be an issue.
Yeah. And then it ended up being a reliability issue.
Yeah. So what you told me what happened? Was it a brake went out? What went out?
Well, he said brakes, and then, I've read differing reviews, and Aston Martin's being tight-lipped about it, and I would do the same thing if I were them. But, there was possibly a control arm issue on the front wheel, but either way, he was out of the race. It really doesn't matter. And this is where I think the scoring is bad for this race, is because if he'd have stayed in the race, you're talking about a potential 10 to 12 extra points.
Yeah.
That Aston Martin would have got. And this is why I think the scoring right now is misleading.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, if Red Bull has one car that is a DNF in the next 5 or 6 races, then Aston Martin is right back in this thing.
Which is insane to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that's where I'm at.
Pretty crazy.
So,
moving on to Mercedes.
Yeah, buddy, your Homer team.
Well, and I didn't really watch them a whole lot. I mean, I was happy with Russell. I felt like he pushed well. He did what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
I didn't watch Hamilton a whole lot. I wish they were better, but I was happy. I mean, like, they're right there with Aston Martin. They were ahead of Ferrari. I was happy. I mean, I was happy with what happened. I mean, they brought. I think you put on here that the upgrade package showed signs of improvement. I think that's clear. That they raced really well. I think that I thought it was a good weekend. I don't think they're going to set the world on fire week 1 with the new upgrades package and having to completely rework their car. But I felt good about it. I mean, I know that sounds weird, but I felt really good about that. And
I put on here that I felt that they were too hard on themselves this weekend.
They were, and I should have got some of their audio, but I didn't clip that one.
Lewis Hamilton's still upset, but I think a lot of that, and we'll get to this later, was the whole Angela Cullen thing. His whole dynamic has changed. So that's gonna weigh on you. I don't care who you are. Even if it was a bad split, that's gonna weigh on you.
And I don't think it was. I mean, what I've heard, but just from other things. But regardless of whether it was mutual or whatever, your routine still changes.
Yes.
So things are different. His race weekends are different now.
Yeah, it's a paradigm shift, man. And anytime you have that, it's gonna give you a little bit of, vertigo trying to get your feet on the ground. So
for sure.
Anyway, I did think Russell, and you sent the interview at the end of the race, and that actually turned me around because I thought he was a little whingy at the end of it.
I really thought you misspelled whiny.
No, I was using the British word whingy.
I don't know what that word is.
You watch Game of Thrones, right? So it's whining in British speak. But if you watch Game of Thrones, there's a scene where guys tells another guy, "Hey, man, you need to stop whinging." And he's like, "I'm not whinging." And he's like, "Dude, there's water coming from your eyes and your lips are moving." So anyway, you heard Russell on the radio talking about, "Hey, what gas?" He's like, "Well, you need to get outside of 5 seconds." And he's like, "I'm driving like a madman." He's like, "Well, keep driving like a madman, dude." So anyway, I thought he did a good job. The interview was really good. Yeah. Where he talked about the fact that, he was like, Aston Martin deserved this.
Yeah, absolutely. He knew.
Yeah. It's tough you're right, man. It's tough not to like some of these guys sometimes when you get the actual interview in, and you see that more and more because a lot of people, even the Americans that have been drawn into even the Americans that have been drawn into F1 via Drive to Survive, and that's their only inlet into the sport, you're missing out on so much when you actually watch the race.
Yeah.
Because those are the parts that Drive to Survive is not going to show because
Gotcha.
it's not good television. So, and yes, Chad.
Jay, if
Anyway,
you'll take over Ferrari for just a second. I'll be right
I'm glad
back.
to. That'll keep you from arguing with me so I can say what I want.
And it won't take me long. I'll be right back.
All right, roger that. So anyway, let's talk about Ferrari for a little bit. So Chad and I really disagreed on Ferrari this week, and it's weird because as a fan of Ferrari, you know, I'm typically harder on them than anyone in my circle because I want them to do well. And yes, it's a pleasure that Aston Martin is doing well because my other team is up there, so it's not a huge loss for me. But I felt like Sainz was slow all weekend. I felt like he was, kind of just not there. And Chad's going to have some audio here in a minute when he comes back. But he ended up finishing ahead of Leclerc, which was weird. I didn't think that would happen. But let's talk about Leclerc for a moment. So Leclerc was, what did he start out? P12. He started out P12. He started making a hard charge towards the front, and he was doing well, and he was kind of keeping track with Verstappen's charge to the front. And then it was like, once he got in the top 10, he was like, that's it. I'm good. I'm just going to hang back here. We also had a situation where Leclerc was going into pits, and he was arguing with his race engineer over telling him something or not telling him something. And but I still felt the strategy was fine. And, he started on the soft tire, and I thought that gave him a lot of traction for his charge at first. But here's the thing you got to realize. So first race of the year, Ferrari loses a car in Charles Leclerc. But they finished both cars this weekend. And I really think, and there's no way to know this for sure, but I really think Fred Vassar was like, let's have a race where we don't have mistake, where we don't have a car go down, where we don't screw up the pit stop, and where we just finish the race with both cars. They accomplished that. And, Chad made a comment, how far has Ferrari fallen if this is considered a win? It's not about that. It's about one race in 23 where Ferrari finished the race with, and I know how Fred works in a lot of ways. And Fred's this very no-nonsense, non-BS guy that let's get back to fundamentals. And I'm pretty sure that's why they brought the guy in the first place. But he's one of those guys that's like, let's concentrate on the fundamentals. Let's get one race where we concentrate on there's no win, there's no loss. Let's finish two cars. Let's pit correctly. Let's get back out on the track correctly. Chad is back. He's going to disagree with me. Go, Chad.
I don't understand how you can take a team that at this point last year was running away with the championship. This point, one race out of 23, which you've said twice now. So we're two races in. You're going to take a team that was, we were in this podcast right here talking about we hope Leclerc doesn't run away and hide with the championship. And fast forward 12 months, and we're happy that both cars finished.
Well, because we had the whole rest of that year last year.
But what did they
realize that having both Ferraris finish was a good thing.
That's 12 months has destroyed this team. In 12 months, they have gone from title contenders to we are so bad that we just need to finish the race in the points. That's crazy. I get that. Listen, I understand the point you're trying to make. That, listen, progress is progress. After last year, progress is progress. I understand the point you're making. What I'm saying is, if I were a Ferrari fan, I would be livid that the best we can do is finish. What did they finish? 6th and 9th? Is that right?
No, dude. It was like 6th and they were together. It was 6th and 7.
Okay, so sorry, 6 and 7.
Chad.
Yep.
I'm just gonna.
No, it's okay for us to disagree. We don't disagree on here very often.
Us Ferrari fans, the Tifosi, if you will, we are absolutely upset that we are not fighting for the championship. However, we're also realists because we have to be, because Ferrari has forced us into a realist stance. And then me personally, and I can't speak for the Tifosi in this moment, if I'm a guy coming into a new job, and I've seen how that job has been ran for years, and oddly enough, I've had this opportunity recently. I've seen how this job has been ran for years. I'm going to want to back things up, and things are going to get worse before they get better, because they need to be, because we've been trying to build on crap for years. So we have to back up, and we have to say, hey, let's get the fundamentals down. Let's learn how to dribble the ball. Let's learn how to shoot a basket. Let's learn how to play defense, right?
Okay.
And I think Fred Vassar is a no-nonsense kind of guy. And I think he's one of those guys that said, hey, if you guys can't do the basics right, then there's no point in us going for a championship. We're building a glass house. And I think he wanted to finish. And I could be completely off here, but I think he really wanted to say, let's just have a weekend where nothing goes bad.
Where nobody's talking about us.
Right.
Nobody's talking about us being idiots.
And here's the thing. Nobody's talking about Ferrari this week.
I mean, it's because they finished 6th and 7th.
Right. Everybody's talking about Checo's Verstappen's little Melrose Place spat, and they're talking about Alonso being happy as a lark that Aston Martin team is for real. Okay, now Fred goes, all right, we've done this weekend. This next weekend, we're going to push. We're going to see what happens. We're going to try not to break the car, and we're going to try to push up there towards the front. But here's another thing. F1 is a weird sport.
It is a weird sport.
Teams can make leaps and bounds in the offseason. And obviously, Aston Martin has surprised the world, the F1 world, with what they've been able to do. So at the risk of us going crazy long, I'm just going to say, let's meter it and let's watch what happens.
I mean, I hope you're right, man. The sport is better when Ferrari's good.
But play that Sainz audio, man.
Okay, here we go.
I tell you what, that God doesn't build them any more honest than Carlos Sainz. I love hearing him. Like, he doesn't toe the company line. He just tells you, this is what happened.
Yeah.
And I like that about him. But we got to move on. So Alpine, let's talk about how disappointing Alpine is right now. Even though Gasly had a solid race,
he did. I mean, he had a good race. He's strung together 2 in a row. They're in the points every week. They're like flying under the radar a little bit. I think because
we were top of the midfield last year.
We were expecting more. It's kind of you know what? It's kind of like another team. I was expecting more this year. I expected them to make the Aston Martin leap, and they're just kind of meh. They're just meh. I mean, nobody cares. Yeah. Nobody's talking about them. Gasly quietly putting together his best year early, but it's just not. It's nothing to write home about yet. They're going to have some kind of breakthrough performance.
Yeah,
you know, where they finished 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, both of them are up there running well. But they're not going to be P4 in constructors this year. They're going to be fighting for 5, 6, 7.
Yeah, and you talk about that, and of course we expect more from AlphaTauri, but Alfa Romeo is one of those teams where I think they're in the luckiest spot in the grid because nobody cares, and whatever they do is going to be good. It's going to be an improvement. So
yeah,
I think they came in with lower expectations, but I think they're doing well, man, for Alfa Romeo. You're talking about a team that was 8 to 10-ish, and they're doing pretty well. They're scoring points. So
this is where I get sucked into F1 race being a fan and not a podcast person, not a show host, because I forget to watch them. I watch my guys. I watch F1. I mean, I watch Max come through the field. I watch Alonso. I watch Mercedes. I forget to watch Alfa Romeo. So did they score points this week? I don't think either one of them scored points, right?
Yeah, they scored points this week. I think they had one car in points this week. They got 4 points overall. So yeah, they would have had to been
like 9th because Magnussen was 10th.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Yeah, I mean, good on them for scoring points. As long as that's the thing. Score points every week. Good things happen
And
if
then
one of the cars is scoring points every week.
and then Haas. So I had a thing about Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg's had this like honeymoon period. It's like welcome back to F1, and I think he needs to put that to bed. And I think he needs to. I think him and Kevin need to just go at it. Him and K Mag.
Yeah.
Because their rivalry caused a lot of great racing in 18 and 19, and I think if those two do that without wrecking each other, I think we'll see the Haas team get better.
Now,
I don't think they're going to jump up to the crazy midfield rates, but
no,
I mean they'll be up there a little bit.
That game, K-Mag and Yuki's battle though, was that coming into the turn when they both locked the brakes up right there at the end. That's as good as it gets. That's as good as racing gets right there.
Yeah, and I was surprised that the broadcast actually went to them, and because I was really ticked off with the broadcast this weekend. They just kept showing Max Pacheco. I'm like, this is the most boring part of the race.
Show the fun part. Show the middle part.
Fun part.
Yeah.
Show Yuki and K-Mag just going at it, and they did for a lap, but that was about it.
And I know this is not racing, but it is because I've done it virtually. I thought it was a lot of fun watching George Russell know that there was a penalty or think there might still be a penalty and trying to stay in that 5 seconds.
Yeah.
He said even on his radio, he's like, I'm racing my butt off to stay in this 5 seconds. He was like at 4.8, 4.9, and ended up just right outside of 5. And I mean, but just him racing hard to try to just stay in that gap, I thought was pretty cool. Knowing you don't have a car to catch them, but just trying to keep the gap the same. I thought that was a lot of fun. They didn't show much of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I think's funny though, and I don't know, I could be wrong again, but Hulkenberg seemed to race the entire race in front of K-Mag, but K-Mag seems to be a better finisher. He just he comes back and he gets in the points, and Hulkenberg doesn't. What did they finish last week? 12 and 13.
Yeah, it was right around there.
So are we moving on to Williams?
Yeah, dude, let's do Williams. Logan Sargent, dude, I'm going to let you take this. I don't know what else to say. This kid is awesome.
He's my favorite.
Out driving that car. Yeah. And I think
he's fun to watch.
I think this is one of the few things we're actually in agreement on. I'm hoping other teams are looking at him. So yeah, I think he's great.
He has been a lot of fun to watch. I have really enjoyed watching him in 2 races. It's just been fun to watch him. I mean, like Maddie, I think Maddie said that he was going to finish dead last. I think that, I think everyone expected Logan Sargent to just look completely overwhelmed, and he hasn't. He's belonged. He's looked good. The car has been fantastic. I mean, for Williams, they got some money with the Gulf sponsorship, and I think there's some positive vibes around that team right now, and I think Logan Sargent is bringing a lot of good energy and new news to that team. And I think people, especially here in the States, if he can run, we got Miami in about a month, something like that. I think if he can run well there in front of his home fans and show out a little bit, it's a good race. I feel like this already exploding sport in the United States is going to get bigger because now everybody in the States is going to see that we have a driver to cheer for. Alex Albon, he's become a seasoned vet. It's kind of weird. I don't know. I can't remember where he finished. That's where I need Jay at to see where he finished. I don't remember. I know it wasn't in the points. But he's raced well. The car has raced well. And one of the things Jay put on here is that the car has a lot left to give. I think we're getting there. I think with the infusion of money and having more wind testing time. Sorry, we're talking about the Williams car being maybe better than they expected it to be. And I think, like I said earlier, with the Gulf sponsorship and having an influx of money and having that extra win time that they got because they finished so far back in the standings, that they have a shot to really make some strides here in the middle of the year.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with you. And, I know we don't have the audio for this one, but you listen to Alex Albon's interviews post-race this year versus any year before this, and he sounds like a seasoned driver. And I think he's really coming into his own as a team leader. I hope we don't see any drama between him and Logan because I think they could
Oh.
be a good team.
I think they are going to be a good team for a couple of years, but
yeah.
I do think Logan's going to move. Logan may be the guy that goes. I see. I don't know the team tie-ins. I know Williams is with Mercedes, but I feel like he may be that guy that maybe takes Lando's spot.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? Or even, if Esteban Ocon doesn't work out, may take his spot at Alpine. I don't think. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if we go full Mad Hatter and we do the whole, Leclerc goes to Mercedes and Lando goes to Ferrari and Logan Sargent steps up and goes to McLaren, I think either one of those would be a good call. Obviously, I'd like to see Logan go to Haas because it's an American team, but I also want to see him be successful. And I
want to see what he can do.
Yeah,
I want to see what he can do.
Yeah.
One thing, man, that is kind of bothered me this year. I know this is weird, but before we've had Latifi, we've had Mazepin, we've had that driver that just you can tell is not going to be the guy, right?
Yeah.
This year, we really have 20 legit. I think any one of them, if you put them in Red Bull, could win races. I think we got 20 of them.
Farmer and I were talking about during the Grand Prix that there's a lot of guys. And dude, you literally just nailed it because there's a lot of guys right there on the grid right now that you could put in that Red Bull car and they would do just as well. And I'm not trying to take away
Absolutely
from Max Verstappen's killer instinct. And I'm not trying to take away from the fact that Checo's a miracle worker behind the wheel. I'm just saying Lando in a Red Bull car and I don't like Lando. So this ought to tell you right there.
Yeah.
Lando in a Red Bull car would be dangerous.
It's winning races.
Yes. George Russell. I also don't like George Russell. Russell in a Red Bull, freaking nailing it.
So, and that's something we couldn't say 2 years ago because if you put Latifi in a Red Bull car, he's going to wreck it. If you put Mazepin in a Red Bull car,
taxi cab, and he's going to wreck it. So.
You put Mazepin in a Red Bull car, he's just not going to get lapped. He's going to get last, but he's not going to get lapped.
Yuki 2 years ago in any car, he was going to wreck it, but
he's going to wreck it.
I think Yuki. I like Yuki, dude.
I do
sorry.
Too.
I just wish he was in a better car.
I loved how mad he was when K-Mag passed him. That passion and fire, I love that.
Yeah.
Let me
ask you a question.
Nick DeVries may be the only one that I don't trust to put out there right now, which is crazy that he scored points in Williams and he was the salt. We thought he was going to be the next big, and he has just not been good. Anyway, sorry.
Dude, he's
ask
irrelevant.
me a question. He's irrelevant.
I literally put that he's irrelevant. But, Yuki, you don't see people that have the fight. He's been 11th in 2 races. I used 11th with 2 fingers. He's been 11th in 2 races. And Franz Toast is doing the whole, Yuki, we need you in the points. And he's right there. And,
he's right there.
I don't think Yuki is smart enough right now. And I don't mean smart enough. I mean wise enough to go. I don't mean smart enough. I mean wise enough to go to Franz and go, hey, man, you need to give me the car that can get me there.
Yeah.
If Max Verstappen was driving an AlphaTauri, by the way, and he has before, when it was Toro Rosso, Verstappen would go to Franz and go, hey, man, I did everything I could out there. Yuki's not going to do that. They can beat on Yuki, and I hate it that they can do that to him. And I hate it that he hasn't stepped forward. Hey, I did what I could. You need to give me a car.
Yeah. I would like to see. I mean, I think that would be a fun game to play. Is to put each one of these drivers in a Red Bull car and let them run time trial laps and see where they shake out. Talk about a fun game to watch. I'd watch that. Moving on to McLaren.
But man, let's move on.
Sorry.
I put in here that they were abysmal, and then I decided to go full Charles Barkley and say they're just terrible knuckleheads out there on the court.
They're terrible.
They're
terrible.
It was awful. It was
couldn't happen to a better group
and I mean
of people.
Awful.
They're my least favorite. I mean, I said it everywhere. I can't stand Zach Brown. I can't stand McLaren. I don't like any of them. I like Lando, and Piastri's probably a good dude, but
funny story. McLaren went through a organizational shakeup this week. Technically,
yeah.
James Key was fired, and they hired 5 people to take his place. So 4 of them are going to be in charge of different aspects of technical direction. And here's my favorite part. And I've got some tinfoil hat stuff, Chad. I'm gonna preface this right.
Shocker.
But I think
You
you'll
are
actually agree
tinfoil
with me.
J. You are tinfoil J.
Yeah. So which is weird because I'm not really known for that among my friends and they hired a COO, which before Zach Brown was doing the whole job. CEO, COO, CFO, all of it.
Okay.
I think they met with here's the tinfoil hat part, and I could be completely wrong. I think they met with Zach Brown and said, "Hey man, James Key's got to go, and if you want to stay, then we're taking COO off of your plate."
Okay.
I don't know how you feel about that. I know Farmer right now, if he's watching this, is probably like going, yeah. But I really feel like they took it off his plate so he could focus more on driving the train in Formula One.
Well, you know what? He needs to focus on driving the train because that thing is off the tracks at this point. They need to make. I don't care what he was doing.
I walked right into that. I set you right up for that one.
Yeah, they need somebody driving the train because the conductor's blind and asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't care less about McLaren. I'm sorry, McLaren fans out there, but I just don't care. I mean, they're terrible. They're going to be terrible all year long. I hope they finish dead last, and I hope everybody gets fired.
All right, so that was the Saudi Arabian. That was we're already at an hour, and that was just the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Let's rouse some rabbles real quick. Chad, you got 10 seconds to respond to these statements. Okay. I'm not going to respond at all.
Okay.
Max v. Checo v. Joss v. Helmet v. Red Bull.
Max and Checo need to tune out everybody else and just go do their jobs.
Okay. Leclerc clearly not happy with team. Is he thinking about leaving?
Yes, he will not be at Ferrari 2 years from now.
When do other teams start looking at Logan Sargent?
Immediately. Summer break.
Summer break.
I think summer break there will I don't think there's going to be he's not going anywhere, but I think summer break there will start being chatter about I think the question above this one, Leclerc clearly not happy, I think that one is going to hit pretty quick. I think it's already starting to hit. I mean, it's already starting to hit. We're hearing the rumors but listen, where there's smoke there's fire. Somebody's floating something out there. Somebody on Leclerc's team is floating something somewhere. Because he's clearly not happy and he is wasting his prime years with a car that we're just now trying to finish 6th and 7th with.
In other news, I absolutely agree with Chad, and I know that's weird.
That's weird. But yeah, I think pretty quickly Logan Sargent I think has turned some heads, not because he's done anything great, but just because he looks like he belongs. You know, he doesn't look overwhelmed. He doesn't look in over his head. He doesn't look like he's swimming in the deep end of the pool. He looks like he belongs. And I think those guys are going to recognize that pretty quick. And they also he kind of brings, kind of like Checo brings Mexico. Logan Sargent's about to bring the United States. And I said it while you were out for just a second that if he performs well at Miami, we have a good race, and he performs well at Miami, I think you're going to get an influx of fans. Because holy crap, I didn't realize that I'm watching it because it's in Miami, but man, I didn't realize that Logan Sargent, we have a US driver. And I'll watch for him, you know, and I think that we're already in an explosion of the sports popularity, but I think it's about to if he continues, I think it's about to ramp up, which is a good thing for the sport. It's always a good thing. There is no gatekeeping here. We want as many fans in as we can get, right?
Absolutely, man.
And I think they're going to see that not only is he competent in a car, but he also is going to bring some money with him.
Yeah, and Chad, since you're talking about Mexico, dude, let's get off the tarmac and let's crawl into the dirt with WRC Mexico. Thanks for the segue. That was brilliant.
I nailed it.
That was not planned.
At all.
At all. So we have World Rally Championships in Mexico. Folks, I'm still going to beat this dead horse until I get some more people involved in rally because this is a great sport. Mikey, if you're listening, Esapekalapi. So I watched the entire shakedown. It was like 40 minutes this weekend. So Chad, in the shakedown, everybody just does like a 1.5 to 2 kilometer portion of a stage just to get it acclimated to the track service.
Yeah.
Esapekalapi killed it in the shakedown. And I was like, really? What? Because I didn't think he was going to be the guy. And then he completely dominated Friday. And he completely dominated Saturday until late morning when he got a little squirrely.
I just now read the rundown.
He just now read the rundown. Great. So he got a little squirrely, and he spun into an embankment and knocked over a telephone pole, which then fell on his car.
It's fantastic.
Bye-bye, Esapekalapi.
Only in World Rally Championship.
Rally in the bag, lost it completely. So he was out.
That's terrible. That's a terrible.
Last year and even going into this season on the Fuel Pod, I've always said that I thought this was Sebastian Ogier's swan song.
Yes.
But dude, I'm starting to think he's fighting for a championship. And
that's awesome.
I think he might get it.
One of the Sebs.
So he just won his 7th, which was record setting. Just won his 7th WRC Mexico, which I guess passes Loeb. So he's going to be the better of the Seb by the end of this season. And dude, I've never been more delighted about being mistaken than Seb Ogier winning rallies. I still am a little bit upset about Kalle Rovanperä is the youngest guy to ever win the World Championship, and then this year he seems to be consistent 4th.
That's weird.
So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but here we are. It was a weird rally. It was dirt. It was nasty. Takamoto Katsuda for one of the third team Toyota Gazoo racing guys. He actually just went right off the side of an embankment and just landed flat and smashed the car. So he was done. I hope they weren't counting him as far as the championship goes. Terry Neuville, who is, he's a top 4 rally driver, period. He took 2nd from my guy, Elvin Evans. Evans was doing great. And Terry Neuville just had an excellent one of his last stages on Sunday. Elvin Evans did have a chance to take him back, and he had him until the last 3 turns.
Oh.
And Evans, he overextended on one of those 3 turns, and he lost.
That's enough, huh?
He lost 0.3 seconds, and it was enough for Neuville to retain 2nd place and get on the podium. But to relate this to our F1, our boy Cyril Abitabu, who used to be the chief principal or team principal for Renault F1, who's now at Toyota Gazoo, had a really good weekend, man. He had 2 drivers in the top 3. So he's doing well, even though he lost Takamoto. He still did very well this weekend. But, hearts out to Esapekalapi. His interview was horrible afterward. He's like,
can you imagine?
He's like, I hit a telephone pole. It smashed the car. It was totally my fault. Okay. Congratulations, man. So anyway, that was the rally there. We also had another huge race in endurance this weekend. This was the season opener for the World Endurance Championship at Sebring in Florida. It was 1,000 miles.
It's a long time.
I think it was something like 248 laps at Sebring, if I'm not mistaken. Ferrari debuted their hypercar for the first time in 50 years.
I got a question real quick. This was 1,000 miles. So this was not a time. This was not a time 12 hours or whatever.
No.
This is first person to 1,000
well,
miles.
Weird story. IMSA, another series, which we just don't have the time to go over tonight. Their race was this weekend, and it was the 12 hours at Sebring.
Okay. All right.
But those
when
were
you
like
put that on here, I thought you were just
level
saying that. I didn't realize that was actually the race. So it was 1,000. It's the first to 1,000 miles.
Yeah, 1,000 miles at Sebring. Ferrari was on the pole with their debut car.
Well, of course.
Their first car in 50 years.
Wow.
And they were on the pole. So for me, that was a success. Unfortunately, the number 2 and 3 cars on the grid were the Toyota Gazoo number 7 and number 8, which I don't know if you remember this, but dude, those cars, that 7 and 8 car from Gazoo have been dominating. Fernando Alonso won 24 Hour Le Mans in that car, in the number 7 car. Nobody's beating that car. They ended up winning the race.
Yeah.
Ferrari, I was absolutely puzzled by Ferrari's pit strategy on the first pit, but then I started
there's a
thinking,
shocker.
duh, Ferrari.
Yeah.
Pit strategy, duh. Anyway, this was a multi-class race. In the GT AM category, the Iron Dames started on the pole, but man, they had a rough day. I felt sorry for the girls. They lost their rear bumper at some point during the race. And, I mean, anytime you lose a part on a car in an endurance race, it's going to affect you over time.
Doesn't seem like that'd be a good thing.
Plus, the Corvette I was shocked by it because I just didn't think Corvette was going to be able to overcome the Aston Martins and the Porsche. But, man, they won by they had everybody 2 laps down.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
It was kind of a shocker, but here we are. So, buddy, listen, with that being said, I am ready to move into podiums and back markers. If you want to get that prime shrimp going.
Yeah, so
I had some prime shrimp tonight.
I did too. That's funny. I had the New Orleans barbecue.
Weird.
Which one did you have?
Oh my God, dude, it was the New Orleans.
It was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I made mine, and this is our ad.
I'm like, it was the New Orleans.
Here's our ad read, right? This is just real quickly. Prime Shrimp is it's good. They're our podiums and backmarker sponsor. PrimeShrimp.com. Use code word FuelPod, 25% off your first order. But I just want to talk about it for just a second. So I took some 0 carb tortillas, laid the shrimp on it, and then a little bit of lettuce, a little bit of mayo, and then I dipped almost like an au jus in the barbecue sauce. Ooh. Fantastic. And it was oh my no, just the sauce off the shrimp.
Oh, okay.
And it was fantastic, man. So and for me, I'm a carb guy, so I only 6 net carbs for the entire thing, so I like that. Anyway, all right. So primeshrimp.com, code word FuelPod. Go get you some shrimp. The barbecue is fantastic. It may be my new favorite. Tonight was my first time to try it. I think it's my new favorite. And who wants to go first here, Jay? Did you make a slideshow tonight,
absolutely.
or you want to go first? Or did you make a slideshow?
I did not. You did no. You put yours in first this week. I was shocked. So you go ahead.
So mine will be really quick. There's no point in dwelling on this forever.
Hey, do your whole thing. Let's do the whole thing. Do your podium and your back markers.
Okay. Well, let me get the music going. We got to have music. We've been doing this for 43 episodes. We got to have the music. All right, there it is. Okay, so my podium, Red Bull, they're just strong. I mean, they're going to be on the podium every week. I have a feeling. Number 2 was Fernando. I thought he was fantastic. 2 weeks in a row or 2 races in a row. I'm really happy for him and his team and Aston Martin. And then 3 was K-Mag/Sargent. K-Mag that last lap or the last whatever it was, getting the 10th place. And Logan Sargent again, he just belongs, man. He belongs. Okay, do you want me to do my back markers or just leave the podium?
No, I'll do my podium, man. That's fine. I see what you're doing here. I smell what you're stepping in.
Yeah.
So my podium, number 3. So I decided to do 3 podium places from 3 different series because I'm a fan of multiple racing series. So my third one was the Ferrari Hypercar debut. I don't think they could expect to win it, but they debuted the car. They took the pole, and they finished on the podium. I don't think you can ask for better than that from a debut car. My number 2 is the old man, Sebastian Ogier, just still kicking it. He's saying, hey, you might have won the champ last year. I'm coming for you this year in World Rally Mexico. And number 1, Fernando Alonso, because we share a birthday, and he's awesome.
That's pretty cool. All right, my back markers, number 3, McLaren, because who cares? Number 2, Ferrari. I just don't. I'm not as happy with them as you guys are, I guess. And number 1, the FIA, because why do you wait 32 laps and a podium and a celebration and a national anthems and 6 national anthems and then everything else and everybody pops champagnes and then you decide there's a 10-second penalty and then you go back on it anyway. So I thought that was dumb. FIA, you're my chief back marker. All right.
FIA should always be a back marker. Anyway,
for sure.
My back markers. Number 3 is the guy on the Ferrari pit wall that always looks like he's about to jump off the nearest bridge. Yes, I'm talking to you, Laurent Mekies. He's the guy that sits to the left of Fred now. He always looks like he's got his hand on his head, like, what do I do? But you got to figure it out. You're working for Ferrari.
You've gotten way
Figure
into this.
it out.
It's fantastic.
Number 2 is Jos Verstappen. Dude, set in the grandstands. Watch your son. Come down to the podium or the paddock when he wins. All right? Other than that, stay your rear end off the paddock. Number 1, Max Verstappen. And the reason I put him on my back marker list is not because of anything other than, buddy, listen, it's okay if your teammate wins every now and then. And I get it. I understand where you're coming from. But, dude, seriously, you got to win graciously. That's the one thing you have left to learn. The one thing that's separating you from joining the Ayrton Sennas of the world, the Michael Schumachers of the world, the Lewis Hamiltons of the world. You got to win graciously, and he does not.
No, he does not.
So, anyway, that's where I'm at.
Jay, we're already running way over, so
Yeah.
I'm just going to go ahead. But here's the deal. I took the time this week, and for the NASCAR minute, it's going to be 1 minute and 3 seconds, okay?
Okay.
It's going to be quick, and we're going to do something new. It's called NASCAR in the NASCAR Minute with Benny in the Streets.
It's time for the NASCAR Minute. But for right now, crank it up.
All right, guys, it's Benny in the Streets. Going to give you a rundown of this past weekend's NASCAR race. The Am Better Health 400. Joey Logano, dominant all day long. Started up front, ended up front, led a ton of laps. The Fords were strong all day long. Logano gets a last lap push from Christopher Bell on the backstretch to get by Brad Keselowski by about 0.2 of a second to pull off the win. Keselowski finishes in second. Christopher Bell third. Corey LaJoie, surprise of the day. Career best 4th place finish for him. And then Tyler Reddick rounded out the top 5. So exciting day again. The Fords were powerful. The Fords were dominant all day long. Looking forward to the street race next week in Austin. And we'll be back to give you a recap of that. Back to you guys.
So that's something new.
I love how he calls Austin a street race. I love how any NASCAR fan calls any non-oval a street race. It's not a street race.
It's just a road race.
It's a closed circuit race. But I get it, dude. He did a great job, man.
He did, and it's something he's passionate about. He loves NASCAR. He was actually on a work trip, and I texted and I was like, "Hey, man, what do you think about doing this on the show?" And he was like, "I'm watching the race right now, actually." So anyway, pretty cool. And Eric, I don't know when we're doing the ticket drawing. That is up to the radio.
Head conspiracy theorist. What
I did that like 30 minutes ago, but cool.
Wow.
So if you text the word fueled 800-786-5489, Eric, I don't know when they're doing the drawing. It's part of the Payne Radio Group family, and all of their shows are doing that at all times. So I don't know exactly when it is. I know the race is coming up in 2 weeks?
Yeah. And he
2
has
weeks,
a very good chance of winning because I don't know how many people have actually put in for it.
I have no idea. No
Yeah.
clue. That's not part of our role here as a show on the Payne Media Group flagship family, whatever we are here. Okay, Fuel Pod News. This is something you wanted to get to today because we haven't got a chance to
Fuel
talk about
Pod
it.
news, and I'll make it
News.
quick. Obviously, big news out of the paddock this week on F1. Lewis Hamilton and Angela Collin call it splits. If you're not familiar, she was his physio for his entire championship run. Always visible. If you've watched Drive to Survive and seen the little blonde lady running like a madman in the paddock, that's Angela Collin. He said
I think she's the one. She got pushed in the water when he got a podium last year.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
She's she's married. She's got like 2 or 3 kids, and he said she's moving on to do some things with her life, and who knows. But I wish her the best because we're gonna miss her. She was always had a smile on her face. That's one thing I'll always remember. And so good luck, Angela, in whatever future endeavors you've got. And Lewis, buddy, you can lick this and get past it and get somebody else to move on. Haas Automation is under sanctions. So
this is kind of breaking. This is kind of breaking news too. It's kind of hitting right now. Yeah.
So if you're not familiar with, the Haas F1 team, but the company behind the sponsorship, Gene Haas's Haas Automation, they produce CNC machined parts for companies. One of the companies they did it for was this, I think it's Aramet or something like that, which is a Russian defense contractor that produces weapons. So the issue is that they've been called to question by Ukraine because they shipped parts to this Russian company after their invasion of Ukraine, which goes against U.S. sanctions on Russia. Haas's position is that they shipped those parts before the sanctions were set. So we need to watch this closely, Chad, over the next couple of weeks, because this could go.
This could be a
30
big
ways
deal.
sideways. Yeah.
As of right now, the United States has not weighed in on this.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
You know, who knows what's going to happen when they do weigh in on it? Maybe that's to go with letter E down here. That might be his Michael Andretti's entry into F1 when they dissolve Haas Motorsports.
Anyway, the other piece is Chad and I started playing. You know, as much as I love Formula One, as much as I love European racing, my heart will always be in the dirt. And we started playing, and we had an absolutely wonderful. And Chad's the only one that streamed it. I screwed up and didn't stream it, but we started playing World of Outlaws, courtesy of the Fuel Pod. It's brilliant dirt track, your local dirt track racing style of racing. So you got sprint cars, you've got late models and eco mods and all that stuff. And
it's a lot of fun.
Really good time. Guys, it has bar none, and I haven't even told Chad this yet, but in bar none, the most complete career mode of any other sim racer I've ever played.
Really?
As far as what you can do. Being able to hire all your positions on your team, and you can hire other drivers to drive for series that you don't want to drive in. It's really cool. So give it a look and check it out. Next up, actor Gabriel Leone is going to be playing Ayrton Senna in a Netflix original film. Of course, Ayrton Senna, he's one of the Holy Trinity with Fangio and Schumacher and Senna. Of course, he died tragically in a horrible trackside accident. But good luck to you, Gabriel, for playing him in this biopic. And I look forward to watching it. And last but not least, Michael Andretti was denied an F1 expansion team. And, of course, the rumors are flying, and these are merely rumors, and I need to say this over and over. But there's rumors that he's going to make a bid on AlphaTauri. So, anyway, I don't know how you feel about that, Chad. But
well, that's what I was saying just now is, you know, if maybe the AlphaTauri thing doesn't work out, maybe that Haas team, you know, who knows if they're going to get in trouble? Who knows what's going to happen there? But that may be an easy entryway into the sport. And my dog's barking again. If you can hear him in the background, I apologize.
Who let the dogs out?
I don't know. Good grief.
So anyway, man, that's all I've got. That ties us up.
All right, man. Well, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next Thursday, 9 p.m. Central.
Yes, we will.
Bye, Jay.
Bye, Chad.